Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you enjoy our content, please support us by clicking the subscribe button just below on the bottom part of the screen here. You should be able to see it here if I get my finger in the right place. Now, back to the show. Today's guest, I'm so pleased that we have today's guest. I'm so excited to interview this gentleman. Our guest is Dr. Scott Robinson. Dr. Robinson is a near-death survivor, not just once, but twice. The first time he was 17 when he died and ended up in the morgue. If that wasn't enough, for one lifetime, Dr. Robinson some years later had another NDE. This time he learned a simple healing technique that he could share with humanity. These experiences gave him intuitive gifts that assist him in helping others. Dr. Robinson is now a multidisciplinary healing practitioner who trains people to help themselves and to connect to Source. Dr. Robinson has also published a book titled There Are No Lines in Heaven. Hello and welcome, Dr. Robinson, to the show.
Thank you, Paul. It's good to be here. It's good to be back in England.
Awesome. Well, it's a real pleasure.
It's always nice.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure to have you here because I've watched many of your interviews and you have such a gift and you have such a great story to tell. Please, can we start by talking about your first near-death experience and what happened to you?
Of course. I was 17 years old, just preparing to graduate from high school. And my father, who was a car dealer in New York, bought me a surprise gift, a used car, 1968 Mercury Montego.
Wow.
Now, for those in the UK and in Europe, that's a car that they would have never seen because it would be too big for the streets then in the 1970s.
Yeah.
This car had a landau roof, a big chair, almost like a couch in the front seat. If you remember those in Europe, they didn't have bucket seats. They had one big couch seat. And it was red interior with a white exterior and a pinstripe with a 302 engine, which was a big engine.
Yeah.
It didn't get great gas mileage, but for that car, it actually did quite well. It sometimes hummed along the road, and I could get that car up to 100 miles an hour.
Wow.
It was a car that was perfect for a teenager, especially a teenager who was looking to date. That was the perfect dating automobile for me. Anyway, my friend Lou, a fellow classmate, decided to invite me to Lake Opakon in the New York-New Jersey border. Right on the New York-New Jersey border, there's this big, long lake. And so half the lake on one side is New Jersey, and the other side of the lake is New York. And I had never gone fishing. So I was going to go get it, go take it up, go fishing. I wanted to do that. Mom and Dad said, go and enjoy. I got up 5 o'clock in the morning. I gave them a hug and a kiss, and I got on the road to go pick them up. My car was humming along. I picked up Lou, who quickly fell asleep. And the next thing, as I was getting onto Route 80, heading towards the road I needed to go north, I looked down at my hands, and they were gone. I saw right through them. And I said, if this is death, there's nothing to fear, nothing to worry about. Now, according to the police report, I drove the next 23 miles and I have no recollection. I didn't know what happened to me. I came out of my body and then suddenly I appeared back in the passenger side for a brief second. As I heard a police officer open the door, I fell out and I hit my head on his boot. And I heard him say, he's DOA, dead on arrival. And apparently I had arrived at the hospital, but I didn't know what was going on until many years later. It would tell me what was happening from the police report. But at that point, I went down a tube, screaming along at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and ended up at the gates of heaven, where I met my grandfather, who I'm named for. And I only knew I was named for him because I'd seen pictures of him. He died 2 years before I was born. And he said, you know, you can't stay here. You don't belong. You have to go back. You have to fulfill your mission and purpose in life.
Yeah.
But before you do, I have some beings for you to meet. And he took me into a small room. One being was with his back towards me, and two other beings were on the other side of that room. And later on, I would know who those were. But as he turned around, he was just slightly shorter than me. I said, "Are you the being everybody calls Jesus?" And he said, "Because of your heritage, you can call me Big Brother, and I will call you the Little Prince of Peace. In Hebrew, my name is Shalom Gershon Ben Svi, which is basically son of the sovereign, the peaceful warrior, the peaceful messenger." So I'm a peace kind of loving guy. And in this particular case, I really got that message from Big Brother. I get to call him Big Brother. And he said, "I'm sorry, but you can't stay here. You have to go back. You have to fulfill your missions and purposes in life." And I went, "Ah, shoot." And I took my right hand, my right fist, and hit it into my left hand, the palm. And the next thing I knew, I was being drawn back into my body. At that very moment in time, my mom and dad, who had been called by the police department, "Please come identify your son's body," they were pulling back the sheet to come identify me when I suddenly opened my eyes and woke up and said, "Mom, Dad, I met God. I met Grandpa." And they said, "Son, you had an accident. Got to come with us." And I don't know if you've ever been on a metal gurney. It's not very comfortable because, hey, they pronounced me dead. What do I need to be on something that's cushioned? And I went to get up and I had the worst headache. And my dad took one arm and my mom took the other arm, and they walked me down the corridor through a double set of doors, put me in the back seat of my dad's car, and they drove away. I had to lay down because I had such a bad headache.
Yeah.
Now, going back a little bit, after I left, it was 2 hours later when the police department called my parents to tell them that I was in an accident and that they needed to come identify me.
Yeah.
Now, my mom, born on Halloween, was always a psychic intuitive. And she never felt worried, she said. She said, "I knew you were going to be okay. I knew everything was going to work out fine."
Yeah.
So she asked my dad, Herman, to drive her to St. Joseph's Hospital in Paterson, New Jersey. And when they got to the emergency room, she told my dad, "Please don't go into the emergency room. Let's go to the back of the hospital." Well, they drove into the back, and that's where the morgue was. My mom was a nurse, so she seemed to know her way around hospitals. They walked into the door of those two doors that I had walked out of. They walked into those double doors down a dark corridor. They said it was really dark in there. There was no lights, no people, no nothing. When they saw a gurney being pushed by a man, and there was a body on it, but it was covered up. And so they walked down to the gurney where this man was, and he suddenly disappeared. And it was at that time they took a look at the body, pulled the sheet back, and saw that was me. Mom and Dad said they never knew who the person was. They thought he was an intern or someone that worked in the morgue, pushing my body into the refrigeration unit. But because it was a dark corridor, they thought, well, he must have stepped into one of the shadows and vanished.
Yeah.
They never knew what happened to him.
Wow.
35 years later, when I came back from a help and healing session for one of the groups that we work with, I brought back a little pamphlet, and she gasped. This man's face was on the pamphlet. 35 years later, she goes, "Oh my gosh, that's the guy that was pushing your body into the morgue door where the refrigeration unit was." So she was like, "Oh my gosh, this can't be for real." I said, "Mom, that guy died 2 months after I was born."
Wow.
But I had, back then at age 5, I had told my mother that I was here for a specific reason and that I had just missed somebody really important. I had come into this world and they had exited. So my mom and dad said, "Yeah, sure, he's a 5-year-old." But I began to make predictions even at an early age. I could predict when someone was going to die.
Yeah.
It did not go over very well.
Yeah.
Yes, I had that gift to be able to tell if somebody was going to die. And nobody in the family wanted me to draw their face for fear that they would die shortly afterwards. Because I would draw a picture of somebody. I was an artist as a young kid. And suddenly within a week, somebody would pass away. Whoever's face I would draw would die. So they were like, please don't draw anybody. Don't tell any relatives anything. I also had a gift as a kid, even before the near-death experience, about who would win a football game. Now, football game in the UK and Europe is soccer here in the United States. But I would tell them for American football, who was going to win the game and by what point spread.
Yeah.
It made me very popular, but I wasn't allowed to bet on the games because God would take away the gift. I figured I would tell the other kids, they would do the betting, and then they'd give me something, but they never did. So after a while, I said, hey, enough's enough. I'm not sharing this gift with anybody because you're not paying me for it. And that was the end of that gift as far as I was using it. But I would put that gift to good use for other things. That medical intuitive ability would be perfect after my second near-death experience. So, Paul, that kind of covers what had happened there. Except when I was at Montefiore Hospital, I came across a neurologist who had checked my blood levels for DMT, that's dimethyltryptamine. And it was one of the ways the National Institutes of Health can tell if you've actually had a true near-death experience. My DMT levels were off the charts. And people who've had an out-of-body experience, those DMT levels will go back to normal. But a person who's had a true DMT or true near-death experience, these DMT levels will stay permanently high. So my pain-killing abilities to do things are about 20% higher than the average person.
Wow.
When people have had to do extractions of teeth or anything work on me, even when I broke bones, my pain level was much more higher than the average person.
Yeah.
So that's one of the ways today that they can tell if a person had a near-death experience or just an out-of-body experience. So my neurologist did my EEG and my EKG, and he said, I can't explain what's happened to you, but they gave me a book by Raymond Moody that said Life After Life.
Yes.
And as a result, I learned about what had occurred to me and started to meet other people like myself. And I knew I was different. I mean, I always knew I was different. All the kids thought I was weird. But to me, this was normal. Now, after my near-death experience, I couldn't drive for a while. So I lived on campus at the school I went to. It was Montclair State, and it's now Montclair State University, just outside of New York City.
Yeah.
It was a great experience living on campus. And because of that, I could be a person who took not 2 majors, but 3. I was a biology, chemistry, and anthropology major. And I got into being a nerd. So I studied as much as I could. I spent a lot of time focusing on things that could help me function in this reality. And I had gifts and abilities to touch people and know what was going on with them even then. I remember some of the young ladies that lived in the same dormitory. I would go down and work on them and touch them and do a massage. And then I would start to experience thoughts and feelings that were going on with them. And I would tell them what was happening in their body and what was going on. Oh, you had a breakup with a boyfriend. Oh, you're being sad, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I was popular as the nerdy kid everybody came to ask questions for. Because after the second near-death experience, which occurred 18 years later, my IQ jumped from 138 to 149. And I seemed to be able to remember everything. I had the ability to read something and memorize the whole book. I had a chemistry book called Morrison Boyd. It was a biochemistry and some other kind of chemistry that we used to use. I don't know if you guys had the same chem books, but I would be called at nighttime and somebody said, hey, that question you were telling me about, where do you find that? I said, oh, if you look on the upper right-hand side on page 1197, second line down, you'll find the answer. And that came in really handy when I was going to college.
Yeah.
So it was easy for me to be a triple major. So
Can,
I get
can
out of college.
sorry,
Go.
sorry.
What were you going to ask, Paul?
I wanted to ask you a question because you're covering so much. There's so many things I'd like to ask, and so many more things we want to get into later. But in terms of, you clearly had what sounds like your mother was. I don't want to use the term mediumistic because being a medium is a very natural process. But it kind of implies different things to other people's. But you clearly had you're a very strong healer. Now, it's interesting that you're connected to spirit, or I don't like to use the word spirit either, but you're connected to esoterical things or energies around you, even as a child. But why do you think you
Yes.
had this gift of, and how did that work in terms of a lot of people that are gifted psychically? You know, they struggle academically. There's a push-pull within them. For you, was it just a natural process, but you had this mental ability,
They
academic
claimed
ability?
I was dyslexic. They
Ah,
claimed as
okay.
I was dyslexic, which is very common in people with gifts like this. I couldn't relate certain things. You give me an answer and I'll tell you the question. Of course, I had my own mom who was the psychic intuitive ability. She always
Yeah.
knew where I was and what was going on with me. You couldn't hide anything from my mom born on Halloween because people used to say she's a witch, but she knew everything that was going on in the family and she didn't have to actually know.
Yeah.
But being that I was a little bit different and I was telling my mom and dad things as a kid that no little kid should ever tell their parents. Oh, you were my parents in a past lifetime. Oh, I know that we've been together before. I mean, I did have some of these gifts, but the near-death experiences just kind of pushed it to another level.
Yeah.
And suddenly they knew their son was really different. So it helps to have been born into a family like that.
Yeah.
My dad wasn't so intuitive as much my mom was. And then I had these unusual gifts that I did not know what to do with. And I was learning more about myself. Now, I'm a super nerd. Girls don't see me the same way that they see the other sports athletes. You know, you've heard the jocks have all the girlfriends. But the ones that appreciated a smart guy were usually somewhere in the neighborhood near me, or they wanted to get to know how I knew things so I could teach them.
Yeah.
So growing up, how I befriended a lot of people is I would memorize things and turn everything into a question. And then I would turn the question into teaching other kids in high school and later in college and graduate school how to take tests. Because of this dyslexia, I had learned from Governor Rockefeller how to use memory to turn it towards your advantage. And that's what he had told a story in the late 60s, early 70s about how he used his dyslexia to memorize everything.
Yeah.
And so I learned that technique.
Wow.
And now here it was, I was also brought up, for those that don't know, I was brought up in a Jewish family, but went to Catholic school and had a unique background when my mom and dad found out they weren't 100% Jewish. My mom found out not only was she both Sephardic and Ashkenazic, we have Muslim in the family,
Wow.
and we had Catholic in the family, and we had people from different backgrounds, both rabbis and priests. And when my mom found out our real true background, it made it uniquely different. Now, I have an adopted Black grandmother who adopted me when I was in chiropractic college. Her name is Martha Hawkins. She's since passed away at 102.
Wow.
But she adopted me because she always felt like she knew me before. And Martha used to tell me that her ancestors were both white Jews from Germany and Blacks who came from multiple places in Africa. The family grew up both Christian and Jewish. After the Civil War, they were some of the smartest and wealthiest Black families in Alabama.
Wow.
Today at George Washington University in Washington, D.C., or Georgetown, I'm sorry, it's Georgetown University, there's a building named for Martha's grandmother who had the same name. And it was when the Jesuits had owned slaves and let them go and sent them down to Louisiana and Alabama that Jewish people had taken on slaves. And it was a popular thing in the 1830s in the United States. England had already given up its slavery because of Queen Victoria and the connections that there were with the king. So things changed, of course, slowly here. And by 1865, that would change and altered. But I have a wide background. I also have Chinese family members. I have family members from Taipei, Taiwan, and mainland China, and Vietnam. So in my family, growing up with my background, we have no prejudice. There's no difficulty between why somebody's one color or another. And backgrounds as far as whether they're Jewish or Muslim makes no difference. The current war that's going on between the Israelis and the Palestinians, I've had family members on both sides get killed. Both those that were in Palestine who are Christian, and they are on the East Bank. I'm sorry, it's called the West Bank. They're on the West Bank, and those that were in the Gaza Strip, as well as Jews that were killed who were Israelis on the day of the massacres on October 7th. So one thing I wanted to share with the audience, because I grew up with a multiracial, multi-background family, no prejudice was ever allowed. There's one thing the other side taught me, and that is never hate anybody and never commit suicide if you have a choice. When you harm yourself, you're harming a gift from God. When you hate somebody, you're emotionally harming a gift from God. And if you want to be reincarnated instantaneously, that's to hate anybody. Jews who hated Palestinians, Palestinians who hated Jews. It is nothing but creating a cycle of hate that Jews will come back as Palestinians, Palestinians will come back as Jews or Israelis, and the cycle needs to be broken. Hate no one for any reason whatsoever. We live on a schooling planet. This planet is the massive universal planet of God. God's university or college level. Only the best, brightest, and most courageous children of God get to come to this world. And 52 races of alien beings get to visit this world. They call this planet the zoo of the universe because there's so many species on it.
Wow.
If we come from different worlds, go ahead, Paul.
I was just going to say, so just to help people join the dots, you had an amazing experience on your second near-death experience where you were taught, I don't want to say schooled, but you were taught and shown so much. And I kind of really want to touch that because on another podcast, you also talk about you smell the difference between the good and the bad angels when you sense energies around.
One of the gifts I have is to identify the fragrance of each angel. You and I can identify one another by the way we look, or maybe someone's perfume or cologne. Well, angels have a heavenly fragrance. And one of the gifts that I came back with, mostly after the second near-death experience, which I'll get into in a second, was the ability to smell the fragrance of the angels. There's nothing like it. The smell is divine. It's heavenly. It actually gets me hungry. But I could identify an angel by their fragrance. Now, the good guys smell like, some say patchouli and strawberries, but the most frequent fragrance is the smell of lemon blossoms or grapefruit blossoms, which has just this beautiful scent mixed with all sorts of other fruity flavors. And I could tell when an angel is in the room who he or she or it is, because they're actually neither man nor woman, they're male nor female. They just are. For Gabriel, Raphael, Michael, they all have different fragrances, but all of the other angels at different levels have a different fragrance. But if you want to learn to differentiate between good and bad guys, the bad guy angels stink like an ashtray. They smell bad. And I don't see them the same way. Like my God voice appears to me 2 feet in front of me and slightly to the left. It's always the same place. God always talks to me in that same location. Evil will tempt me, taunt me, and talk to me from behind or my blind side. Good always comes from the front. Evil is cowardice. They will never come from the front unless you're going to come across a really bad, nasty dude. So if a big, nasty dude's coming at me, they're heavy duty. They're in the demonic, super demonic or satanic levels. And the thing is, though, once you get strong, you know how to identify them and get rid of them.
How do you? Yeah,
the only real reason.
Sorry,
the only real reason we're here.
Yeah. I'm having those lights.
We are here to master this reality.
Sorry, Scott. I'm having those lights flash on my screen again. As we're talking, my screen keeps flashing. I'm getting white light, and it's really interesting. So
you're getting God talking to you.
We're definitely, the information that's coming through is amazing. Now there'll be a lot of people that are affected, or they believe to be affected. Whether there'll be a lot of people that may doubt, and that's their own choice. But how do we? I don't like to use the word protect, because I always say if you have a strong faith in God, that you are protected anyway. So I have a lot of faith in a divine creator. True. Sorry, go on.
When you learn how to use the power, the divine power of prayer, you will be able to push out all the evil from your universe, your surrounding personal life, your family life, your home, your work, all that stuff. One of the things is, first, you must differentiate between the good and the bad. We're on a schooling planet. Our reality is to master this reality, endure, persevere, and overcome. You're never here to suffer. Let me repeat. You're not here to suffer. You are here to struggle. Like a butterfly that is in a cocoon. If you cut the cocoon open, it will die. It must struggle to push its way out to become this gorgeous butterfly. Well, to be a human, you must struggle. You will be tested every day of your existence. Remember, you're on a schooling planet. All the evil in the universe is placed right here. 52 races of beings will come to visit us to see the dichotomy between good and evil. When, as a human race, we master this reality, then this dichotomy will cease to exist, and we too will go out in the stars and visit the other races of beings from other worlds who are just like ours are now, learning to master their reality. Your amazing. Other missions and purposes in life will be determined by what God has planned for you. Doctor, lawyer, Indian chief, pilot, someone who's a sailor, an army person. All those are your own private missions and purposes in life. But every one of us has one major mission. Master this reality. Only the best and bravest, courageous children of God get to come to this reality. On the other side, the second near-death experience showed me how many billions of souls are just waiting to get into this world and live even in the worst squalor, situations, and war, simply to experience this reality. You can't say they're dying to come here, because they're not. But the angels know this is a place where they fear to tread. No joking. Angels will come here in human form. They will be our teachers, but you must realize who they are. Only 10% of this reality really knows who they are on the good side. 10% of this reality knows who they are working for the dark side. And everybody else is caught up in the middle. Do you want to be manipulated by the dark side? Or do you want to know who you are and work for the good side? Yeah. The choice is yours. Freedom of free will without constraint. So we live in a really messed up planet that wants to destroy itself, at least those in power, right? They want to destroy this world and recreate it in their own image on the dark side. Are we going to tolerate that?
Yeah.
Are we going to choose a better way to do things?
Yeah. And I've heard that being said. And I've heard that there's this a struggle between the light and the dark. And without trying to be too dramatic, is it literally a balance within us with the light and the dark, the good and the bad, finding this ultimate balance within? Do you think it's more profound?
if everybody realized who and what they are as children of God, they would realize it's a balancing act, but you actually can tip the balance using one very simple technique. This is where the second near death comes in. All right. I was a medical examiner for the state of California, Division of Workers' Compensation. I went and became a pilot, and I got paid by insurance companies and judges to fly around the state, go to Nevada, Arizona, California, track down a person, do an exam, and the next day fly down to wherever the courthouse was and present my findings. I was practicing takeoffs and landings in the San Bernardino Mountains up in Lake Arrowhead and Big Bear with my flight instructor, Lisa. We flew out of Long Beach. We came up to the mountains. I wanted to make sure in December I knew how to take off and land in wet weather conditions, bad weather, icy conditions.
Yeah.
Because if you make a mistake, you can't pull over to the side of the road.
Yeah.
I was up at 12,000 feet coming off the lake, and I suddenly got lightheaded and nearly blacked out. I fell forward, pushing the yoke of the plane. I flew a Beech Sierra C-24R, which was a retractable landing gear, 200 horsepower engine. It was called a Baby Bonanza.
Okay.
So I nearly passed out. I slumped over, face down, and she, thank goodness, was with me. We were doing this flight testing, and she pushed us down to 8,000 feet, roughly, where I regained consciousness. We went and flew back home. I was still kind of woozy. I got in my car, and I really couldn't drive very well. And since I was working with the police department and my brother was a police officer, I have a little sign in the window, and the local California Highway Patrol saw that and escorted me back to where they could let go of me safely. And I went to my medical examiner's office. Now, every pilot has to take a flight exam every year.
Yeah.
I was due for one anyway, and I was feeling kind of tired. And so they took me, did my blood work, and found I was severely anemic. And they sent me to the Keck Institute at USC Medical Center. And for those that watch the Guiding Light and General Hospital soap operas, the picture of the hospital and the gate is General Hospital, part of USC Medical Center. And the Keck Institute is back behind that building, where they took care of kidney and nephrology and all sorts of other rare things. So I went in there, and I was referred to these doctors. They were friends of friends. And they said, we don't like what we see. We're going to recommend that you take this therapy. I won't get into the therapy or the diagnosis and prognosis, but I said, I don't accept your diagnosis and I don't accept your prognosis. And the medicine you want to give me is definitely going to kill me. I'm not going to do it. So I know of this therapy down in Mexico at the Gerson Institute and Hulda Clark's Cure for All Diseases. And I'm going to go there. And I'm either going to live or I'm going to die trying, but I'm not taking your therapy because that will kill me.
Yeah.
And 3 months later, I came back because I went to both clinics down there. And I presented myself for a review with the first two doctors. And the first doctor said to me, hey, we must have made a mistake. We can't find anything wrong with you. And I said, you do realize you're talking to a former medical examiner, a QME, and, and they went, uh-huh. And suddenly they shut up. My file disappeared. That doctor retired. The other doctor suddenly died. The third doctor who came in was the tallest doctor I have ever seen. He was over 7 feet tall, and he was nasty to me and believed only his therapy could do anything. And I asked him, don't you read books like The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton? No. Have you ever read Bernie Siegel's work, Love, Medicine, and Miracles? Bernie's an adopted uncle of mine. He's my mentor. No. Don't you believe in the power of prayer? No. Only my therapy works. Well, I'm only 5'8". I couldn't jump high enough to hit him with my fist in his jaw. All I could reach was his elbow at best, but his knee definitely. And he was so big that if I hit him, I would hurt myself. I left, never went back, and I had to sit down and do prayers in order to forgive him and his staff who didn't understand that there's an alternative way to do things. And he didn't believe that God could possibly do anything. Now, here's a very interesting story. In the state of California, it is against the law. Let me repeat. It is against the law to bring in God in the conversation when discussing certain diagnoses or treatments. If you have a license and you come from out of state or not from the United States, you must sign a document that says you will not discuss God, prayer, or divination with your patients, or you will forfeit your license. It's one of the reasons I had to leave California, because I had to give up my chiropractic license and my medical examiner's license, and I became a licensed religious counselor, a doctor of theocentric counseling and ethics, and a licensed religious counselor, so I could do what I do here in Florida.
Yeah.
Florida is a big believer in the power of God. And so as a result, I can still incorporate God in healing. See, in California, you can't get a cure unless you've got standard therapy and survived 10 years and 2 months past that therapeutic approach. It used to be 5 years and 1 month was considered a cure, and God and an MD were allowed to, quote, cure you.
Wow.
Only an MD can cure in California. God's been taken out of the equation.
Wow.
Now, that second near-death experience, after I landed and they put me on the table, they knocked me out with something called fentanyl. Now, I'm sure a lot of the people who are watching this in Europe and the UK remember that Michael Jackson died from an overdose of fentanyl.
Yeah.
Right? That was a medicine that puts you to sleep. Could be rather serious.
Yeah.
Well, they gave me fentanyl and overdosed me and stopped my heart. I came out of my body, floated above my body, as I was telling you earlier when we were just discussing things. That's called a veridical near-death experience. I came out, floated above, and there was a being standing next to me. I said, "Can I go home now? My body's a mess." And they said, "No, you still can't go home. You have to stay here and fulfill your purpose and missions in life." And I said, "Well, what is my purpose and missions in life?" And they said, "You will learn a simple technique to heal yourself and share that with other people." And I said, "Okay, you want to give me a heads up?" And I came back into my body. I could tell the doctors what they were doing. They were talking about things that they should have never talked about while they were working on me. I could tell them the shoes and clothing that they were wearing. And when that happened, the nurse was embarrassed. She quit that hospital, moved on, and the doctor stayed within that particular professional location. But I never went back there. All right. That near-death experience said I would learn a simple technique to heal myself. I would start to investigate every type of alternative medical practice and spiritual thing you could imagine. And I worked its way up 425 different alternatives and spiritual things. Yeah. And one day in 2007, just shortly after my birthday, an angel appeared in my room and said, "Now is the time you will learn this simple technique to heal yourself. It's an ancient method, and you will share that with others." Does the audience really want to know what that is?
Absolutely.
That is called Einstein. Einstein, Einstein, Einstein. It is a German word. It means tuning into the source and asking for help and healing. That's really what it is. Now, there's many ways to connect to God and self-help and healing. One is nature. Several different forms of prayer and meditation. All natural ways to do it. There are many different methods, but this one is my favorite because this helped me. At one time, I had 9 spinal fractures, 5 skull fractures to deal with that were originally diagnosed with me from that first accident.
Wow.
The second diagnosis was a result of everything that went in and caused issues from the first. Yeah. Now, as a medical examiner, I didn't normally work with that, but I trained doctors in autopsies. I did diagnosis of when you do, I can't think of formaldehyde bodies. It's not coming to me. The The word came out of my head. But cadaver work.
Oh,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you, Father God. I did a lot of cadaver work. And so I was a trainer teacher when I was in school. And I would teach the young interns and doctors in cadaver work. And I took that into when I went into the medical examiner's corps, we'll call it. But because I wasn't an MD, I wasn't accepted in the standard practices. I did more court work, which was fine. They paid really well. I didn't have a problem with that. Then the AMA came in with California, and my agreed medical examiner's license became an agreed medical evaluator. And then they changed it again to become a qualified medical evaluator. And then they changed it again, and I became a medical expert witness. And so I was in the medical and legal field, and I went to court a lot. I went to as many as 17 court cases a month and saw about 60 patients a week. And my gifts started to turn on. And the first time I recognized it, one of my women patients, you'll notice I don't call them female or male. That's something you use in the Bible. It says animals are male and female. We are humans, and we are men and women. Well, one of my young women patients was on the table, and I was working on her. And the first time I ever noticed the gift waking up was I touched her on her spine when I was working on her, and I got the feeling I'm just about to have my menstrual cycle. And I went, what? I can't have a menstrual cycle. I'm a guy. So I asked her, I said, are you about to have your menstrual cycle? And she said, no, Dr. Robinson, it's not due yet for another week. So I said, okay. So she got dressed. She went to the bathroom. I continued to work with other patients. And then she came out of the bathroom. And before she left, she pulled me aside and she said, you know, Dr. Robinson, in a whispering voice, guess what happened? I said, I don't know. And she said, my menstrual cycle just began when I went to the bathroom.
Wow.
So that was the first time I realized I could touch somebody and know what was happening. This gift would grow to the point where I didn't need to touch anybody physically. I could actually be on the phone with them and tell them what was going on with them long distance. Patients were like, how do you know something's wrong with me? How did you know? I said, I just got the feeling and I called you. They would say, hey, man, you're scaring me, man. How do you know that?
Yeah.
And that's when I knew I had some kind of gift that I was not aware of before.
That's amazing.
So the second near-death experience was following the flight and the flight school. And the first near-death experience was from a car wreck. And the one thing I learned, never accept a diagnosis you don't want. I mean, if you want that diagnosis, that's up to you. But I sure as heck wasn't going to accept the diagnosis the doctor wanted to give me. That's an important thing to learn. Learn to have patience with the C, Patience, rather than be the patient, Patent.
Yeah.
So one deals with you being a doctor-patient relationship, and the other one deals with just waiting. So their favorite saying to me from the other side is, wait, just have patience, wait. I ask a question to the other side, they'll just say, wait. And this is important. You also want to remain calm. The other side cannot get through to you unless you remain calm. You want to remain calm? Then they'll talk to you.
Yeah.
Now, if you're really having a hard time, I teach people all sorts of other techniques besides Einstein to help them. 1, the power of prayer. 2, Einstein. 3, pushing faint matter. Pushing faint matter comes from pushing energy out of a book that's 100 years old by Baird Spalding, written called Healing Masters of the Far East. My instructor who taught me this told me to never be afraid of pain. And when I learned this technique, I stopped being afraid of pain. I could push pain out of my body. But the most unique thing is I could not only push pain out of my body, I could push pain and other things out of other people's bodies.
Wow.
And he called it pushing faint matter, pushing dark energy out of a person with some kind of health issue. Next, I teach something called verbal frequencies, or balancing by numbers. And then I help people by erasing negative emotions. Eraser. ER, small a, capital SR. Eraser means emotional release and stress relief. It's a compilation of a multitude of different techniques for getting rid of emotional behavior. But this one specifically targets the subconscious. And it teaches a person how to get rid of emotions within 60 seconds. So,
Wow.
in my book, chapter 5, I have 12 modules. This was all based on a book written for school so I could teach doctors and their patients how to help themselves heal. Since God is the greatest physician and there is no incurable, you must learn how to do this. You must have faith in God, trust in a being higher than yourself to connect you to God, and belief in your own divinity to heal. Now, in California, I've been kicked out of hospitals because I use that term. God is the greatest physician and there is no incurable, because MDs don't believe that.
Yeah.
And they threatened me. So I got my rear end out of California. And I realized I could not do what I used to do there. But since God truly is all that is, the divinity, the one, the all, the everything, the big guy, the it, when you learn that you're a child of God and you have the ability to learn these ancient methods and techniques that humans once knew how to do but forgot, now, being the doctor part, I get to mix modern medicine with alternative medicine with spiritual medicine and teach people to be their best physician, with God being the greatest physician, and learning to feel your body. Your body is a tool. Well, what are you supposed to do with it? Learn how to use it better. So I give people a handbook on how to use your body as the greatest tool invented by God. It is the greatest gift. Learn how to use it. Don't abuse it. Don't harm another person with it. And learn what to do with it. Stop taking burdens from lifetime to lifetime and taking them with you as you leave. No, stop. Get rid of those burdens. Learn how to tune into the source and ask for help and healing. And learn Einstein. It is in 137 different countries. I work with doctors just like myself, both those that have had near-death experience and those that don't, that are open to alternative practices around the world, and we help people. Now, my nonprofit group, it used to be called P3, or the Peace is Profitable Project. We used to take kids from warring areas and bring them to the United States and teach them how profitable it is to learn to work together rather than kill each other. And you can both profit off of what you do and how you believe in God and work together as children of God. It's now transforming, thanks to one of my supporters, into something called turning swords into plowshares. And we're going to take that even more so, but get younger kids out of warring areas and transform their lives. I last did this in Afghanistan when I adopted children in a orphanage. But that orphanage was shut down by the Taliban and the children had to disperse. Some died, some ran away and to Tajikistan, and some ended up being on the other side fighting against the Taliban. But we do this wherever we need to do it, no matter what country, whether it's mainland China and Taipei, Taiwan, especially since I have family from that area, whether it's Ukraine and Russia or Israel and Palestine. Wherever there's warring factions, we want to get the children the opportunity to learn peace is profitable and war is not.
That is absolutely amazing. I'm trying to take a breath here, Dr. Robinson, because you've come up with so much profound things. Can I go back and turn the dial down a little bit? So I wanted to touch on suicide. Now, I know why you was having this near-death experience. Is schooled the right way to say it, but you learned some lessons when you was over there with the angels. You said something about try not to do the suicide. Now, I kind of had a feeling that everything was meant to be, even suicide. There's a gentleman in America that talks about soul planning, and Mr. Schwartz, I think, that published a book on soul planning. So do you believe that suicide fits into that people are meant to commit suicide?
If it's meant for you,
Yeah.
let me tell you how it runs from the factory of God.
Okay.
Everything is pre-programmed before you come to Earth, whether it's a near-death experience or your suicide. But some suicides are not pre-programmed or pre-planned. You see, even your death is a gift to those who live. So I've worked with 2 clients now who both, when we asked the spirit on the other side, they said, no, this was pre-planned on purpose to give the person who was alive an opportunity to forgive and for other spiritual growth things that they had to deal with. So yes, it's pre-programmed. But is every suicide pre-programmed? No,
Yeah.
it's not. And that's the ones we want to prevent from happening. Those, well, how do you know? Well, first of all, if you don't have to commit suicide, don't be like Masada, where they all got killed and then the last guy commits suicide. Do your best to live this life, because evil will try to push your buttons till you do commit suicide. So is evil pushing your buttons?
Yeah.
Or is the divine giving you an option?
Yeah.
For instance, this one young man, he was going to die a horrible death, either in a battle, a war, a disease state, or take his own life, like a Harry Carey, a ritual suicide.
Yeah.
And then the suicide would be used for training and helping his family. That was pre-programmed. His mother actually wrote a book about it, about how he had come back and said, no, Mom, everything's okay. But not everything's the same. Not everything's that way.
Yeah.
Not everybody knows that and is aware of it. So if you have an option, take another avenue.
Yeah.
Now, people said, what about assisted suicide? Now, you're doing this with the blessing of all those around you. Did you really ask God before you decide to do it? Or are you been given the option that you're going to die anyway, and you'd like to end it on your own terms before you have severe pain? Now, that also states that you haven't looked into spiritual options that might give you the ability to have a miraculous event occur and a healing. Have you tried Einstein? I tell people, try Einstein, not try it, do it for 120 days. If you don't see any results in 120 days, then do whatever you want to do and walk away from it. But if you haven't tried Einstein and you're going to talk about committing suicide, let's see. Here's a story. Woman wanted to commit suicide. She cleaned up the house. She got the mail in order. She got everything done, lined up all her medications so that she could overdose. She went out to get the mail because she wanted everything organized. And in the mail was a little flyer, a pamphlet, talking about help and healing using this technique called Einstein. She said, okay, I just for the heck of it, she was in awful pain and she had been addicted to pain meds. I'm going to go there, and if they can do anything for me, then that's fine. If they don't, I'll commit suicide tomorrow. So she went, she learned, and her pain disappeared. She had help and healing. She was a very blessed person to have it happen so fast. Not everybody has that happen so quickly. So for her, that help and healing came in the form of a letter, an envelope. In this case, it was a pamphlet that talked about spiritual healing. So it changed her. So if you're thinking about committing suicide, give Einstein a try.
Yeah.
In 128 days, if Einstein hasn't taken away your pain and you aren't going to change and you aren't connected to the divine, go blow your brains out if you want to. But I really wouldn't recommend it, because here's the other thing that happens. Because I don't recommend suicide at all. Wherever you hurt yourself in your suicide, you will come back in another life, having to repeat the life you didn't finish properly, and you will have pain in the area you harmed yourself. So if you blow your brains out, you will have bad headaches and other things happening. Okay?
And
so you don't want to do this.
That's also been proven, isn't it? And it's interesting that this affects a lot of Asian cultures that believe in reincarnation. It's been proven that some children have been born with what looks like shotgun wounds. you know,
or a hole in their heart,
yeah,
or any type of defects,
yeah, yeah,
right?
and
So don't do it if you have to.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of work that's been done on that. Now, can I also touch on prayer? Because for me, the importance of prayer is really important. But you know, to be honest with you, I don't know if I'm doing it properly. How do we know? And recently, I was reading that actually prayer is made up of 5 elements, and one of the biggest parts of prayer is forgiveness. How do we forgive those that?
Amazing.
Yeah, and but how do we
All right.
forgive?
You want a simple technique?
Please, we'd love one.
All right. All right. Couple things I teach. It's the third most common issue for all humans. Number 1 is fear. Number 2 is overwhelm. Number 3 is forgiveness or the lack thereof.
Yeah,
And by the way, for the audience, I don't ever want anybody to blow their brains out. That is the worst way to go. All right. Forgiveness is number 3. There's 2 ways to do this very easily. The number is 116-979-458. You ready?
yeah, yeah,
116-979-458. One more time.
yeah.
116-979-458. The other way to do this, all right, let's say, Paul, I was mad at you for something that I perceived you did to me. All right. First of all, from the other side, some of your best friends on the other side will be your worst enemies in this reality.
Yeah.
They do it on purpose because they volunteered to be mean and hurtful to you, because only your best friend will do that from the other side. So you come in and you're being mean to me and you've threatened me and you've had all sorts of things and you don't remember that you've done this. So I have to wake up and remember to forgive you. So I will point at you or a picture and say, I forgive you, I forgive me, I forgive us. I bless you, I bless me, I bless us. I thank you, I thank me, I thank us. I send you love, I send me love, I send us love. Amen. Now here's a very interesting thing. You cannot bless evil. And so before you can even do this prayer, you must ask, is this person working for good and God, or are they working for the evil? If they're working for evil, which has happened where I've run across people like this, I cannot bless them, because you cannot bless evil. The only thing in the world God ever wants you to hate is evil itself. And the majority of humans, no matter how bad they are actually still inherently good and from God. Only 10% of this world actually volunteers to give up its soul to work for the dark side. Don't be one of those if you can help.
Yeah.
But chances are, if they're working for the dark side, they're not watching this. And if they are, they're the ones leaving bad comments in the underneath the work here that you have. You have a comment section. Usually those are the ones that are nasty about it. Oh, they're doing this for money. Oh, they're doing this for that. Oh, they're mean. Good people always think before they speak. They come from their heart. They come from the good in God, and they're there to help one another. Ideally, you're to do all things without greed or ego, but you still have to make a living in the world. And so different things have to be done. I sell books, helps me make my living. I work on patients and clients, helps me do my living. But I also know that I have an assigned amount of people that I'm going to be working with. Do I have to do it with ego and greed? No. I still can be fair. I still can make a nice living, and I can still help the children of God who need help and healing. Now, are there times where God will tell me, no, don't charge that patient? You betcha. There are actual times that God has said to me, you're not going to charge that person anything. You're going to just give that to them as a gift. And I give away $40,000 USD in services every year.
That's beautiful.
That's $40,000. Now, I'm not cheap. I'm a little bit above the average when it comes to doctors, but insurance doesn't cover me. They don't even recognize me, right? But I'm here to help as many people as I can. Yeah. I talk wherever I can talk, and I actually get paid to talk in front of audiences, either for corporations, colleges, and universities, for diversity, equity, and inclusion, discuss the political things about DEI versus DIE, talk about the fact that heaven and earth should be similar, that there are no lines in heaven when you reach the pearly gates, no Christians in the center, Jews to the left, Muslims to the right, for we are all children of God and we are all welcome. And then the angels go on to laugh about how silly human beings are. That's how the book got its name. At least that's one of the two ways. I have many ways that people ask for helps and healings. Divine insight. You want to know what's going to occur in the future? There is one thing I'm not really allowed to tell people: the day of their death. It can interfere with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Now, people like myself know that when we're born, we're also on the day of our birth given our exit ticket. So in other words, like an airplane, your round trip, you know when the round trip ticket is up and you have to board the plane and return to heaven. This is where the part with the suicide comes in.
Yeah.
If you're not meant to commit suicide, let's say you're supposed to live till 80 years old and you commit suicide at 55, your soul will have to stay on the earth and remain here till the day it was supposed to have gone home.
Right.
And heaven forbid, it may be taken by something else and pulled onto the moon and kept hostage for the next 25 years. But the biggest thing is,
they would have to come back. And I've heard stories from other quite famous people where they talk about the soul having to come back within days of dying, that they're reincarnated to kind of fulfill that. And I find that really interesting.
Or they hang around as an entity, a spirit that is disembodied, and they have to hang around. You'll see that in Gettysburg, for instance. Any battle site.
Yes.
Gettysburg is famous for it.
Yeah.
Where there'll be spirits walking around. Are they the ghostly apparitions, or are they the actual spirits? Spirits have actually told me on several occasions they don't want to go home. They're afraid of being punished on the other side.
Yeah.
By God. Yeah. The thing is, they're not going to be punished. You just punished yourself. Yeah. Like I said, the angel said, we don't need to punish you. You punish yourself. Number one, humans make a mistake. Number two, they beat themselves up because of the first mistake. The angel said, we don't need to harm you. You do a better job at harming yourself. You create illness. You cause yourself all sorts of harm. And then sometimes you commit suicide.
Yeah.
Will you be forgiven? Of course. You have to forgive yourself. Now, all these things come back around. Everything, what goes around, comes around.
Yes.
Are you going to do your best? Are you going to do things preferably without greed and ego? I mean, you can be as wealthy as you want. Are you going to use that money for benefiting other people? Some of my clients put away money so that they could help for the nonprofit part, so that I could use it to help teach kids, younger kids, when they're impressionable, how to love one another rather than to hate one another.
Yeah.
All right. I've had some of my clients who are from Islamic countries said, we're not taught to forgive one another. How do I know how to do this?
Yeah.
And so we'll learn. I'm not going to change your religious belief. Whatever belief you came in, if that's what you love, you want to be Jewish, Jewish. You want to be Christian, Christian. You want to be Buddhist, Buddhist. You want to be Muslim? If that's what you love, you came into the world as that. Use the gifts of your faith and learn from it and master.
Yeah.
And do the best you can in each reality. I had a girlfriend, and that's how I worked with the Afghanis. I had a girlfriend who was Afghani. She was a Sufi Muslim. Her family was wealthy. They came from Iran. They found out I was Jewish. Didn't do very well for her. They bribed her to leave and not be with me.
Yeah.
She's
so
being
sad.
Sufi. She was open to all sorts of things.
Yeah. That's
right?
so sad.
I also knew our divine connection. I knew we had been together before. She had a near-death experience. I had a near-death experience. And we realized who we were in a past lifetime. One of the things that I work with, Paul, is that I tell people about their past lives if they want to know. I won't necessarily tell them when it's time to go home unless God gives me permission. But I will tell them about their past lives, what burdens they may be carrying, and then how to clear that so they can stop that old pattern, break it, and change their reality. Case in point, Scorpios. Scorpios love to carry burdens from lifetime to lifetime, and they have a hard time letting go of burdens from previous lifetimes, especially grief. They will fight with you. They will argue with me. They will say, I don't want to give up grieving. I have every right to grieve. All right, you're going to find out what happens when you grieve. My own mother grieved until the point she caused her heart harm. So when she died and came back and gave me a gift, she took away all grief from me simply because she knew what grief had done to her. Now, you can grieve for many things, people, places, times, or spaces. But since one of my divine trainings was, don't do that, don't let go, don't get attached to people, places, times, or spaces, for all things will change.
Yes.
I knew I could not grieve for long. And she gave me that gift. 3 days after Mom's passing, she gave me the gift, and she took away all grief. She knew I was going to have to sell the house when it, in its own way, was its own grief. And grief can cause you the most severe issues, lower your immune system. Well, what if you didn't have to grieve?
Can I ask you a quick question around grief? Because yes, absolutely. But do you think that grief process is also a level of pain, but it's a level of the pain that we experience through grief is actually showing us the depth of our love for that person? So I feel
It's also in other words, yes, the more you grieve because the more you loved. However, if you truly honor and love that person, you'll know that you'll be with them again soon.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to have less grief. Do you have to grieve? No. Remember what I said? You're not to suffer. So grief is the number one cause for suffering in this world. But it will lower your immune system and cause many things to malfunction.
Absolutely.
Strictly, mainly for the heart, not strictly for any other specific area, but your intestinal tract, your brain. If you grieve too much, it'll knock everything off.
Yeah.
So, do you want to grieve? Yes. Now, Jewish people grieve for 11 months and then they're supposed to go back to living, right? But my mom continued to grieve for 7 years, and it caused her to end up having a pacemaker and taking heart medication. So, to the audience, do you want to grieve that severely? Scorpios have a tendency to not know how to let go of grief.
Yeah.
So I will teach you how to let go of grief. Do you want to keep the grief and suffer? Or do you want to struggle and let go of the grief and honor the loved ones who now you can say goodbye to by making a memorial, honoring them in a certain way, donating in their name, creating a charity, helping other people? So the choice, do you want to suffer or do you want to struggle?
But also,
now remember, I was told.
Yeah, sorry. Also, to let them live through you. They're your ancestors.
Yes.
Let them live through you.
But now you're bringing joy into it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, my dad came back 18 times after his death. I heard him. My mom heard him. So can you grieve for somebody you know that's going to come back and talk to you? All right. So I connect people to the other side. That helps them grieve less.
You've literally just taken the words out of my mouth. Because some people see death is final, but we know it's not. We know it's not. So
the angels call this death. That this is not. The angels call this world death. To them, life is on the other side. So no, this is not death. You just transition from one reality to another. It was put to me this way. Think of your life really as where you are closest to God in what we call heaven. Then God will show you 3 different choices to come down and experience life. A man, a woman, any combination of the above. And whatever you're going to look like, whatever you're going to sound like, whatever your religious faith is, and that will be shown to you in a form of a video. You choose the life you want, then hop into that life and appear in this reality. Sort of, you're on stage, you put on your uniform you call a body, and the curtain goes up and life begins. All right?
Yeah.
When the curtain goes down, life is done, exit stage left, you go down the steps, life between lives, experience life, what it's like in heaven, then get ready for the new body and the new experience. Life goes on infinitum until God says you don't need to do this anymore. And maybe you can take your body from one life into the next because you've learned to master it. It was said Moses didn't actually physically die. He just climbed up the stairs of heaven and went up because there is no signs of any place he was ever buried. There's no claim that he was ever buried in the Old Testament. It's that he ascended to heaven with his body at age 120. So when you master this reality, you'll do that. Jesus, it said that he comes back as the being he left. Jesus, right? But you have a choice. Do you want to master this reality and do as the masters before us, as the archangels and those we call big brothers have done before us? Or do you want to suffer? Remember, you're not here to suffer. If you're suffering, then you're hearing the message from evil. If you're living life and enjoying it, you're doing it this way. There are those that are in the parade of life. Everybody's centered on them. Politicians, movie stars, other people. And then there are people in the grandstands of life, watching it all go by. And then those are the masters and the teachers. And they're stepped back even further. And they're watching the people in the parade and those watching from the stands. Don't be either one. Be the observer and master this reality. Take this beyond the understanding you currently are aware of.
Yeah.
There is much more that goes on in heaven and earth than you'll ever realize. Once this divine insight starts to come through you, you become a conduit to help others. And once you help others, it makes a profound difference for another soul who needs to be lifted up. Now, statistical thing. 70% of this world cannot wake up. Their human design is such they couldn't recognize God if God stood in front of them. 30% can wake up. Of the 30%, 28% are only quasi-waking up. Only 2% will master this reality in any given life.
Yeah.
2% will realize who they are and why they're here. I'm not here to argue with anybody. You want to go kill people and people go kill you? You want to die for the cause? God doesn't want you to die for a cause. However, if it's pre-programmed that you are going to, well, then yes. Sometimes you have to give up who you are in order to be who you are. People in battle, fighting for a cause. If you're going to fight for a cause and die for a cause, well, maybe you are supposed to die.
Yeah.
Remember I told you there are billions of souls on the other side waiting to jump at a chance to come into this reality and experience even the worst situations, starving, dying of disease, being killed in battle, whatever. And there's other beings who've learned to master this reality. Neville Goddard comes to mind because I talk about him in the 3rd edition.
Okay.
Neville Goddard was one of my instructor teachers because they taught about how to use the power of manifestation and prayer to create what you want. He taught people how to become wealthy millionaires. Well, I've learned how to create hundreds of thousands of dollars. And in order to create millions of dollars, I had to feel like I was doing something greater than myself. So I created a nonprofit group so that you can now create millions in that so it could benefit others. After you've made a couple $100,000 a year, you kind of have everything you want when you're even wealthier. But I can't get caught up in the money part.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I get caught up in this earthly world. The true treasure is not the earthly world. Your greatest gift is your body and its health. The second gift is anything you do with what you have and share that with other people. And in my case, it's to help people realize that that gift from God, their body, is divine. And you must treat it as such. And as a result, choose better. Ask better questions. That's another thing. They teach me if you don't know the answer, ask a better question, and the angels will tell you. They are pre-programmed. They have to tell us. So whatever you're going to do. Now, this also brings me back to that question. You have to be pre-programmed. Do you know what deja vu is, Paul?
It's a past life memory, I believe.
Nah, it's not a past life memory. It's actually a future life memory.
Oh, okay.
There's past life memories, present life memories, and future life memories. When you are shown those 3 videos of who you're going to become in this current life, right? When you're living that life and you're on your purpose and your mission and your path, your divine spiritual path, when you come across the exact moment in time when you were pre-shown that video of the possibilities of who you are, and when that deja vu exists, it's reminding you that you are on the correct path of who you are and why you're here on Earth. Now, past life experiences, because I know 38 of mine, I was only allowed to experience the knowledge of 38 of my past lifetimes because it dealt with why I was here and what I needed to finish up. They said, you're not here for greed or ego. You're here to finish up from 38 lifetimes, things you need to clear up that you could not finish. Karma does not need to exist. That's another fallacy. Yeah. Karma doesn't exist. When you decide to come back, it's out of love and a contractual agreement to simply pay you back for something you could not do in a previous lifetime.
Yeah.
Something I learned from Bernie Siegel. Bernie's my adopted uncle and my mentor. I met him when I was in chiropractic college. I was the president of the chiropractic student body, alumni, and he was there talking. And he was talking about his book, Love, Medicine, and Miracles. And I just fell in love with the idea. Him and Dr. Mendelsohn. He was the medical heretic. I loved both of them. So I got to be on the show with Dr. Mendelsohn, who was there in Chicago where I was living. And Bernie invited me to be on a radio talk show with him. He got me into being in front of a camera, and I ended up with a TV talk show for a short time, the same as Gaia was on in 2013, 2014, and 2015. So Bernie has taught me to write my books. He's motivated me. He's helped myself and my mom. He's written 17 books. He's still alive. He's 93 years old. Wow. I knew his wife, and I was in a wheelchair at the time. And I asked, do you know who your wife Bobby is in this lifetime? Who was she? And he said, I'm going to tell you. During a previous lifetime when I was a knight, my Lord wanted her and her family wiped out. And the choice was, and he was in love with this woman. He had fallen in love with her. The choice was he either killed this woman or he would be killed. So in that life, he killed her.
Wow.
To make up for her, in this life, he took care of Bobby, his wife. And he said, in that life, I killed her. In this life, I helped her to heal. And he told me something else because he had a near-death experience, and he talks to his guards and guides. And his guard and guide is named George, a rabbi, who came back to help other people through him.
Yeah.
And he said, when you need to finish up in a life, if someone harmed you in a previous lifetime, they will become your doctor in a present or future lifetime, and they will be the surgeon that helps you heal.
Wow.
So, as he put it, you kill with the sword, you have to heal with the knife. And that's why a lot of surgeons are surgeons. They probably killed somebody in a previous lifetime, and it's their opportunity to make amends by healing them in the present. And I remember that story because I love Bernie. And for those that don't know Bernie's book, Love, Medicine, and Miracles, he's got 17 books out there to read.
Well, we'll certainly check that out. But I had a kind of a miracle with my own experience with a brain tumor. And when they opened the opened my head up, they discovered that the tumor had crystallized. So, and I remember
and it was easier for them to take it out?
It was. So the tumor itself wasn't cancerous, but it was about the size of an apple. And it had got so big that they had to take it out. It wasn't, they couldn't work out why it wasn't affecting my balance and coordination, but it was so large that they believe I had it from birth, but they said the chances are it could cause an hemorrhage and you need to get it out because it was getting bigger. So when they
Now
operate,
that you brought up that issue, did it come from a previous lifetime?
well,
Were you hit in the head in a previous? Were you killed?
this is what I was thinking. So yes, I had two surgeons, the ENT surgeon, ear, nose and throat surgeon, and also the neurosurgeon, the brain surgeon. And they were both amazed when they opened it up. The tumor had crystallized. So where I was going to, they planned there'd be a lot of damage that it would cause, like not being able to talk. It was on the right side. I've got a large scar still on the
Near
back.
Broca's area, behind your ear?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see the scar. So
yeah.
if it's in Broca's area,
Yeah.
it could have affected your ability to speak.
Yeah, that's what they said. They said I would lose my speech. I wouldn't be able to swallow, and quite a few things. I wouldn't be able to drive again. But they opened it up, and it just crystallized. So I always put it down to the power of prayer, and I wasn't ready to have or embrace potentially the life that could have been for me, or did I have some?
So you didn't accept it.
So I didn't accept it, or there was a karmic connection with the two surgeons that operated on me. So that's really interesting, isn't it?
And it could be.
Yeah.
What if the two doctors in a previous life had either tortured you or they killed you and now they had to heal you? Now, the other thing is, one other thing. If your mother was abused either by your father or another family member before your earthly birth, you could come in with a strange thing that caused you harm, but then is no longer a problem. So it's one of those two options. And I will sit with you and we will go and we will talk to the other side and we will ask them, is this something you came in to get cleared up because these two doctors harmed you in a previous life? Or did it come in as a result of something that happened to your mom during pregnancy? Will you want to find out?
Yeah, I'd love to
and then
find
we
out.
can do that.
That sounds awesome.
Right.
Thank you.
So
Thank you so much.
We'll do that off screen, and then you can share the results of those later on.
Sounds great. Love that. That's brilliant.
Paul.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that you ask all the questions you want to. Anything that I haven't covered, anything that you feel the audience should know about. Hey, I'm in the healing professions. I do something that's uniquely different. I'm an empath, and this intuitive ability to be able to help people heal physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually.
Yeah.
And help remind people who they really are, figure out their mission and purpose in life, and help them. And that's why I go and do these talks. I remind people to have faith in God, trust in a being higher than ourselves to connect us to God, and our own belief in our divinity, not only to heal, but to master this reality, endure, persevere, and overcome it. Do you want to become part of that group? Do you want helps and healings? Have you been written off by the medical community? Then I'm somebody you might want to talk to.
Yeah. Yeah. And
now, the biggest interesting thing, Paul, I've actually had doctors starting to come back to me and ask for teaching. Go back and teach this so people understand a different understanding of reality.
Yeah.
Allowing people to have greater faith and not just hope. Hope is below the line of positive. It's the most positive of negative terms. You want to have joy, peace, harmony, and love. Those are the powerful divine terms. Happiness is a human trait. Joy is a divine trait. Do you want to live your life to the fullest? Do you want to take care of yourself while you're here? Have you been written off by the medical community? Have you been left for dead? Is there no other option for you? Are you financially strapped and don't know where to go? Hey, I have two ways to help people. I have my private clients who hire me for those purposes. I actually get called in to help them, their animals, and their own divine purpose and missions in life. And they usually hire me to come out and work on 10 to 20 people at a time.
Wow.
Then there's others that do one-on-one and they hire me. Well, let's say you're really down and out and you have nowhere to go. I teach how to do Einstein every 2 weeks on a Sunday afternoon, Florida time, that's Eastern time, 2 p.m. I spend an hour and a half to teach people how to do this. I don't charge a thing for it. So if you don't know where to go and you don't know what to do and you're looking for God or looking to God for answers, give it a shot.
Sounds good.
I told you.
So
try it for 120 Earth days.
I think it's that's 8 p.m. UK time, and I think it's 9 p.m. if you're in Central Europe. But that is fantastic because I believe you're 6 hours behind the UK, so 7 hours behind Central Europe, guys. That's awesome. And how do we get on to that? Is that a Zoom link or?
Yes, it's a Zoom link, and sometimes people have a hard time with Zoom, so we have to do other ways.
Yeah.
The best way is go to my website, https:// there are no lines in heaven.com. You can reach me directly through my email, healer2besure@gmail.com. That's HEALER, the number 2, the letter B, sure, SURE, @ symbol, A with a circle, gmail.com. And then sometimes I'll give you my private email. I don't give my private email out unless you happen to be a client of mine and I need to chat with you.
Yeah.
I mean, other than talking to my different legal counsels and my PR people and my editor, nobody gets those. But the general one where you can contact me through, and either myself or someone else will respond to you, we'll set up an appointment. But if you're just wanting to do Einstein, then in your request, when you email me there, say, I just want to learn how to do this thing called Einstein. And then once we're done with the training, I will teach you or tell you where to go and who to work with in the country that you're coming from. I recently was contacted by people in Egypt and in Pakistan, and sometimes I don't always speak the language. So I have people, doctors in the countries that they come from, and I tell them where to go and what to do and how to continue this in their local area in whatever country that they're in at least 137 of the countries.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a wonderful thing. It's a great.
Now, my book comes in 2 forms.
Yeah.
Yeah. Paul, for all of those that wear glasses, I wrote the book in a very large format. The book is 3 inches thick. It weighs 3 pounds. If you threw the book at somebody, like the police say, you'll throw the book at you, it would hurt somebody seriously. It has a size 18 font, and it's done on purpose so you don't have to wear glasses to read it.
That's great.
If you don't have a problem with vision, go get the ebook. If you don't like to read or you have dyslexia, in the free Kindle that Amazon provides, up on the upper right-hand side, there's a section where it will automatically read the book to you. Because I have a number of clients who are vision impaired. They push the little button and the book is read to them. And they can talk to it. So they use artificial intelligence to read. I'm not fond of artificial intelligence. Certain things you don't want to get involved in.
Yeah.
Chat GPT, those things I don't like to do any involvement with.
Yeah.
But sometimes certain things like a book reading to you automatically, that's a good thing. It's beneficial and it's helpful if you can't read on your own, or if you can't read because you don't like to read. I love listening to books on tape, and this is a great opportunity to hear the book. Go to chapter 5. It's half the book. You'll hear about all the things we discussed. If you don't want to read the book, the whole book, go to chapter 6. It's only 19 pages long. It's a synopsis of the entire book in a nutshell. Then go back to chapter 5. You want to read about my story, about my mom and dad coming back after their death, about my neighbors witnessing them.
Yeah.
All that stuff's in chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. The medical legal terminology, all that stuff for the doctors, that's all there. This book will never get smaller. It will only grow. The third edition is coming out soon, and it's another 60 pages longer than the last edition. So the book will keep growing and growing and growing. So, Paul, I know you have lots of questions. Your partner who does the editing, I know you had some other questions you want to cover. What can I answer for you?
Well, I've just wanted to finish on one because we've been going for an hour and a half and you must be exhausted. But I just wanted to ask you one to finish off this particular podcast. I just wanted to ask you, in terms of the field in which you work, what are we not talking about in the medical field that we should be?
The truth? Did you know that for everything a medicine is designed to do, there's 40 side effects? The truth is that a lot of medicines can be made simpler, more natural. Medicines cannot, by law in the United States with the FDA and with Commission X in Europe, take a natural ingredient and copy it, because by nature, that's what it is. You can't take something in nature and copy it.
Yeah.
But you have to make it slightly different. One of the things in Europe that they do differently than the United States is there are homeopathics and other medicines that vibrate or rotate. They spin in a different fashion. And as a result, they spin more like the natural path that the cell spins. And with this lever rotatory versus dextrorotatory motion, you have less side effects.
Wow.
So some of the medicines based in Europe are actually healthier than some of the medicines based in the United States. Now, since the United States, commerce and Congress work together, medicine is based upon profit.
Yeah.
Stop using medicine to profit. The same medicine in Mexico that could benefit people is 1/10 the cost because, number one, profiteering in the Americas, and two, because research and mostly advertising costs so much money that that same $10 medicine is now $100.
Wow.
So I go across the border and buy my medicine if I needed some medicine that I know works. And I would go across the border. And then the government came in and said, no, you can't do that. So we went to Canada. And then they said, no, you can't do that. Because the Congress here is made so that countries, or in this case, companies, can profit. Stop with the profit, because profit means it's coming from evil.
Yeah.
When a medicine is made more naturally, it is of greater benefit for humanity. So using Einstein becomes spiritual medicine. And in California, they want to take away the right to have spiritual medicine as part of your help in healing.
Yeah.
Remember, I was told I was to come back without greed or ego issues. Still can make a living, but I don't have to profiteer off of it.
Yeah.
I still can sell my books, but I can also do things reasonably and make sure that everybody benefits from the knowledge.
Yeah.
Now, that was the question. How could we do it differently? Make it so it's not about greed or ego. They have medicines that are made out there, but it's for such a small class of people with such a unique challenge that they're not going to mass produce it to make it cheaper.
Yeah.
Now, yes, they have to pay themselves back for the massive amounts of money they spent researching it. But with all of the side effects on modern medicines, I think the older medicines are actually safer for the body, right?
Yeah.
Look at natural medicines. Hey, they give people a hard time. Fenbendazole and ivermectin. Easy ways to help people who came in contact with parasites and especially with things like COVID.
Yeah.
They knew it could help, but they never recommended it.
Yeah.
Instead, they spent a fortune on medications because doctors love expensive medications that are toxic. And how did I know that? Dr. Mendelsohn. He's the first thing he talked about. The medical heretic. He talked about that MDs love medicine that's expensive and toxic.
Yeah.
And not simple at all.
Yeah.
Go back to being simple. Go back to nature. Go find out what nature can provide. But at the rate we're going, we're going to destroy nature. And nature is God and God is nature. And if you destroy nature, then you're going to destroy the ability to receive helps and healings from everything in it. If you destroy the Amazon, you might be destroying the next miracle medicine.
Yeah.
But now, incorporate whatever medicine you want, whether it's standard medicine, alternative medicine, spiritual medicine, and incorporate that with the divine.
Yeah.
Use whatever it is. Homeopathy, naturopathy, acupuncture, massage, chiropractic, whatever. And don't believe there's only one way to help and heal. There's always somewhere else to go. Unless God says it's time to go home, there's always another answer. Case in point, 1/3 of my clients I have 12 weeks to work with. They've been written off by the medical community. Now, since I was written off by the medical community, I don't like that. So I don't like when people have been written off. I'll do anything I can to help those folks.
Yeah.
So if they can't stay, I'm going to help them cross over. It's considered a mitzvah.
Yeah.
Number 2, 1/3 of my clients will live 4 times longer. Oh, you only have 6 months to live. With my clients, 2 to 4 years if they've been given 6 months. Third one, 1/3 of my clients will have miraculous helps and healings. We like to call them astonishments. I didn't do anything. I just taught them what I was taught from the other side, and I help them, and I'll teach them how to do these things on their own, and they will connect to God, and God will be the greatest physician.
Yeah.
And then it's up to God and them whether they're going to stay in this world and fight, or are they going to give up and go home? It's not up to me. You're God's patient. You're actually only my client. I just am a little teeny go-between who's been taught a lot of things, had some natural gifts, and has been blessed by 2 near-death experiences. I want to make sure that when it's my time to go home, they won't tell me, no, you still haven't fulfilled your purpose and missions in life. You got to go back.
Yeah.
And so I want to make sure that I have done everything God put in his plan for me. Whether you call God he, she, it doesn't matter. There are no lines in heaven. No Jews, no Christians, no Buddhists, no Hindus, no Muslims, no nothing. We are all children of God. We come here for a lesson. This is a schooling planet where evil masters it, and we have forgotten, and our job is to master it back. Their job is to kill us. Our job is to master this reality so they can't kill us and recreate heaven upon the earth once again.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you can hear me okay. I've just lost the signal slightly, but Dr. Scott Robinson, it's been an absolutely brilliant interview. Thank you for giving up your time and to share your valuable experiences. And I hope the people at home, well, we'll put links in, guys, into the comments box so you can check out where you can find Dr. Robinson, how you can get in touch with him, the website link, and also the book link as well. But thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your valuable experience with our audience. We can't thank you enough.
I love you, and I look forward to seeing you again and doing some other wonderful things to create miracles in other people's lives. Love to everybody there in the UK and into Europe. God bless to everyone, and see you on the next YouTube video.
Sounds good. God bless to you. Thank you so much.